Welcome to the OSO Spurs podcast. We only report news when enough reputable journalists have announced it, and there is genuine interest and bids from Tottenham Hotspur for Mohammed Kudus. But who is he? Where will he play? Is he alternative to Eze? Or is he a player that will be in addition of someone like Eze? So, Deej, let's start with where he plays and what his strengths are as a player.
Yeah. So Mohammed Kudus is someone who has basically played entirely on the right wing over the past couple of seasons. But if you go back to his time at Ajax, he also did spend some time as more of a false nine and also as like an attacking midfielder and like a 4-2-3-1. So he is comfortable playing on either the right or the middle. He was deputized on the left a little bit for West Ham last season, but I don't believe that went over particularly well. So I would say it's safe to assume that he will either play on the right, probably, or more centrally. And in terms of his strengths, he is someone who just loves to dribble. He is a player that will take the ball and progress the ball for us. And that's something that we kind of lack as an area of our squad that we haven't been able to have consistency with because it seems like all of our ball progressors are constantly being injured with players like Madison, players like Odebear, even players like Kulusevski that's the kind of profile of like player, someone who takes the ball and moves it forward. And I would say that of those players, Kudus is also the most like explosive, dynamic. He's a very quick player. So that's something that is definitely a thing that we are missing in our squad at the moment, and that's kind of the thing that I think that we're looking forward to.
Particularly with Son, being rumoured to be leaving as well this season if a suitable offer comes in. Spurs are going to lose their only, what you'd probably define as explosive attacker, or at least he definitely was when he was in form. And Wilson Odebear is the only other kind of dribbly player, but he's also had his injury issues with a major hamstring injury. So we are definitely short. And there's also rumours as well that we might be selling Richarlison. So we'll be short on wide players, even though that's predominantly on the left. And we need a backup, right, who can play centrally. You mentioned that. I think that's often overlooked with Kudus, is that he actually can play in that role. And we do desperately need consistent cover there for Maddison and a slightly different type of player in that role, right? Kudus is more likely to run at his player and try and beat his man, whereas Maddison's more likely to carry the ball and then progressive pass through and break the lines that way.
Yeah, and that kind of that kind of instinct of Kudus to run at his man is why I think he will, for in the long term, be more of a right wing option, because from the what I've seen of him at West Ham, the one thing he does do a little bit is hold on to the ball too much, which can lead to him losing the ball a bit much for a player that plays centrally. So either that's something that'll be coached out of him if we decide we do see him as a long-term central option, or it'll be something that we allow him to have a bit more freedom on the wing, take on a lot of players, win a lot of duels. You can see his successful take-ons are always in like the 98th, 99th percentile of players when he's on the right wing. But he also tries a lot of duels. So he's running at his player and he'll win them a lot of the time, but he also doesn't win them enough of the time to be comfortable, for me to be comfortable at least right now, playing someone like that centrally. Because if you lose the ball out wide, whatever, you get it back. There's not as much, there aren't as many options for the opposition to kind of spring a counterattack on you. But if you lose that ball centrally, then as we saw so many times last season, that's kind of where you get into trouble, is because there's just so many different outballs that the opposition can play and just be on you like that.
And a lot of people will be wondering whether this means the end of our rumoured pursuit of Eze, although there were definitely, sounds like no major bids ever put forward for Eze. A lot of people would like to see him in a Spurs shirt. Eze plays predominantly on the left and centrally. Kudus plays on the right and centrally. Do you feel he's an alternative to that signing, or could you see a world in which both are a possibility?
I could definitely see a world in which both are a possibility, because like I said, I think that I'm pretty sure that Kudus, at least for like the first season, would be a player that would play predominantly on the right. So there's definitely still space on the left, especially if Son goes, to bring in I'd say a more senior winger, because as of now, I believe our starting left winger would be Tell, and he's still pretty young, still has a lot of areas to work on in his game, even though I do think he's still very promising and very happy we made that signing. But I think that, like I said, it's possible. But I think that if we do sign Kudus, I think a thing to look for if we don't sign someone like Eze is rethinking Kulusevski's role again to shift more centrally permanently, because I think he did play well in the times that he had there. So if we sign enough right wing depth to kind of allow for us to not worry about like people being injured. And because if we sign Kudus, we have Johnson, and we have Odebear all able to play the right wing competently, which would mean we could have the freedom to move Kulusevski more centrally when he is back.
So yeah, it definitely adds a completion to the squad. But like you say, the focus, I think, therefore, will be afterwards. Perhaps the left-hand side will be more of a focus after you've signed Kudus. So there is still a world in which someone like Eze is appealing, but I imagine we'll be more looking for a primary left winger who could play centrally if they had to, rather than a Eze type who's primarily a number 10 centrally who could go the left wing if he had to. That's kind of the strengths we'd be looking for. But he seems like a great value for money signing, right? Well, he's expensive, but I mean in the sense that Premier League players are expensive. And if Eze's worth 60, I don't think that he's miles apart in terms of ability, even though a slightly different player. So if Eze's worth 60, I think people should be therefore saying this guy's not worth 60. And we've obviously gone.
Another thing to look at for Kudus is the age factor. Eze, he's been like a great player for a few years now, but that's the thing, he's been a great player for a few years now. I think he's like 28 now. So Kudus is only 24, and that age will also add a couple of probably like 10 million pounds onto a transfer, because he's just going to be in his prime longer. So there's more years that you're kind of getting rid of for a player like Kudus than you are for a player like that.
And West Ham are in a position where they wouldn't normally sell him, by the way, but their PSR limits are quite tight. So it looks like that is one of the reasons why he could potentially be moved on. And what I would watch in this space is whether they want that to be activated right at the start of July when the new PSR window begins, so they can get moving on their own acquisitions as well that they may have lined up. So thank you very much, Deej. Hopefully we'll be discussing him in a Tottenham shirt over the next couple of days.
Here's hoping.
Up the Spurs.
Go on, Spurs.